Call the regular monthly board meeting to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Carr?
Present.
Director Garcia? Director Gokul Gandhi?
Present.
Director Herndon has asked to be excused for tonight. Director Leonard?
Present.
Director O'Halloran?
Here.
Director Simpson?
Present.
Vice President Taylor is also excused for tonight. President Peterson?
Present.
We have 6 board members present.
The chair will now ask the secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so, and asks those who do not wish to participate, please remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll now read our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Milwaukee lies on traditional Menominee, Potawatomi, and Ho-Chunk homeland along the southwest shores of Lake Michigan, part of North America's largest system of freshwater lakes. On this site, the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Connecticut rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's Menominee, Ojibwe, Ho-Chunk, Oneida, and Mohican sovereign nations remain present to this day. This meeting is being conducted in person from the Central Services Building. In order to allow as much public access and participation as possible, this meeting is also being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799. Nuevamente, 312-626-6799. E introduzca el número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Gracias. Before we move to our agenda, the chair will ask that we share in a moment of silence to commemorate the passing of the following members of the MPS community. Rafael Acevedo, retired teacher from Forest Home Avenue School. Mary Addison, a retired food service assistant from Carver Academy. Kevin Abelardo Morales, a student in the Milwaukee Virtual Program. Deborah Anderson, a food service assistant at Lincoln Middle School. Josephine Mosley, a retired principal from Dr. King Elementary School. Jamari Page, a student at Hartford Avenue School. And Kenneth Tabaka, a retired boiler attendant trainee from Hamilton High School. Each month, the Milwaukee Board of School Directors, now we're going to have a moment of silence. Excuse me. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Each month, the Milwaukee Board of School Directors accepts the public's input, both at committee meetings and through correspondence submitted to the Office of Board Governance. As this is a regular monthly meeting of the board, however, in accordance with board rules, the board will not be taking any public testimony on any item during tonight's meeting. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments should be directed to the chair. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, board members, or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. Please be respectful of the democratic process adhered to by the board. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone persisting in disrupting this process will be asked to leave or will be escorted from the meeting and not allowed to return. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. Also, no one other than board members, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on the stage before, during, or after the meetings of the board and its committees. Also, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the Meetings, Agendas, and Minutes page on the MPS website and choosing Online Agendas. Now let us begin. Madam Secretary, what is our first item of business?
The first item of business on tonight's agenda is the awards and commendations, the Excellence in Education Award.
Each month, the Board of School Directors recognizes an outstanding school, student, staff member, parent, or community member for display of excellence, achievement, or innovation that may serve as an example to our schools and the entire community. This month, the Milwaukee Board of School Directors is proud to recognize the winners of the Dr. Martin Luther King Writing, Art, and Speech Contests. Would Ms. Nuncy Buck, please come to the podium. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good evening, President Peterson, members of the board, and Superintendent Posley. I am Nunciata, N-U-N-T-I-A-T-A, Portis Buck, and it is truly a privilege for me as liberal arts manager to say that this is a great day, a great evening, besides all of the strange weather. But the 39th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Contest citywide celebration, which was held on January 16th, 2023, was a very significant occasion during this not-so-new normal. We hosted our first in-person presentation and celebration since the COVID-19 pandemic. Working towards a world of peace. Let that resonate. Because in 1968, Dr. King's Testament of Hope, he and his editorial staff defended the Southern Christian Leadership Conference's position that nonviolent resistance was the only effective strategy for social change. There's no easy way to create a world where men and women can live together, where each has his own home, job, where children receive as much education as their brains and minds can absorb. It will be done by rejecting racism, materialism, and violence, and especially by working toward a world of peace, brotherhood, and cooperation. Our Dr. Martin Luther King participants tonight not only have weathered the storm, but we had an awesome competition this year. 6 of the first place winners were MPS scholars, so we were very proud of them. Superintendent Poser, we are MPS proud. Because those 6 students came, they had a voice, they empowered us, and the conflicts, work obligations, and changes in this wonderful weather in the Midwest and in Wisconsin, it shortened our 6 presenters tonight, but we have 2 brave soldiers, and I thank their parents immensely for braving the weather. They will grace us with their presentations, with their presence, share their voice, and they truly have made an impact in MPS, working towards the world of peace. First up, and they like it because when we call them at the PAC, they get excited. We will have Mr. Ashay Henry from IB Lowell. He was the first place winner for our grades K through 2, and followed by Mr. Christian Lara, also from Lowell Elementary, who was the first place winner for our grades 5 and 6. Ashay?
Hello, my name is Ashay Henry. I am a 2nd grade student at Lowell International Elementary School, working towards a world of peace. Living in a world where there is peace, love, justice was Dr. Martin Luther King's dream. He wanted everyone, no matter how they looked or where they were from, to be treated equally. I come from a family of different backgrounds. None of us look the same, but that did not change the love we have in our hearts. In today's world, there is a lot of hatred Even though we are free, so many of our men and women are not free from the fear of racism. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did not want us to live in a world of fear. His mission called for change. Change is not impossible. It continues with you and me. We must always be peaceful and free of hatred. We must always move in love for everyone. That is how true change happens. That is how we continue and fulfill Dr. Martin Luther King's dream. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christian Lara, and I'm a 5th grader at Lowell Elementary School. And my speech is called Working Towards a World of Peace. My speech is about world peace. World peace is important since it's about, well, the world. I would like to talk about how we must accept our differences and respect everyone in this world. The most surprising war in this modern world is between Russia and Ukraine. And it's very devastating that Russia is bombing Ukraine. So what are we bombing the innocent people for and making them homeless for? Getting more power? Really? Now, I would like to focus on some stuff from the past. People back then thought that black people were slaves and that women could just be housekeepers. This makes no sense. Why is it that just because of something nobody can control or choose, people should not be punished for who they are? We need to stop discrimination altogether. No gender, racial, or cultural discrimination should be allowed. If people all respected each other, none of this would have happened. No slavery, no imbalance of power. But it happened, and we can't change that. But what we can do is learn from our mistake and move on. There are other things that affect us a lot, like the Waukesha Christmas parade where 7 people died and one of them was a kid. Along with that, other simple deaths and robbing incidents have happened. But they're not important, right? Wrong. Also, let's talk about all this gun violence in our country. People don't feel safe at schools, grocery stores, holiday parades, and even at their homes. Why should people be scared to come out of their homes? Why should people need to worry if they're spending time with their family, doing something fun? Every now and then, we have people dying for all these reasons. Every death shows that the world just really needs world peace. But some people just won't listen. If you're someone who listens, please spread the word of peace. So instead of all of us going to war and hurting each other, let's join forces and work together. Together, we can make life better. So what do you say? Do you want to stop war and bring peace to our world? Thank you.
Ashe and Christian, we thank you again, and we want to give you one more round of applause. And if you did not notice, several of our administrators tiptoed in because they really couldn't see you. So they are in the back to share their love. Director Peterson, members of the board, and Superintendent Posley. Those students who couldn't be with us tonight, I actually have asked Ms. Chambers to allow me to say the first place winner for grades 3 through 4th was Priscilla Naw. She was also a Lowell IB Elementary winner. Grades 7 and 8, Ms. Kayleigh Phillips from Golda Meir. 9th and 10th grade, Ms. Harmony Allen from Riverside University High School. And last but not least, our grade 11th through 12th grade winner was Mr. Malcolm Bishop from Vincent High School. We thank you for your attention tonight. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, what's the first item of business?
Mr. Chair, we at this point would move to the first item that is under the board clerk's reports, and that would be the request to retire to closed session on litigation in which the board is or is likely to become involved.
Okay, could I get a motion to do so? Director O'Halloran.
I move that we move into closed session.
Thank you. Could I get a second?
A second.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to retire to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes, Section 19.851G, for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the board who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the board with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. Is there any discussion of this motion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Chair, and that motion was made by
O'Halloran?
Director O'Halloran, seconded by Director Gokul Gandhi?
No.
Or Director Carr?
Director Carr, yes.
Thank you.
Good.
On the motion as
Thank you.
read, to retire to closed session to consider the item as discussed on litigation in which the board is or is likely to become involved as a part of the board's clerk report to the board. Director Carr?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Aye.
And President Peterson?
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, the motion passes.
At this time, the board will retire to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851G. The board will reconvene in open session to take action on this item or to continue with the remainder of our agenda. Will the secretary please note the time?
So noted.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, what's the next item of business?
The next item of business is action on the minutes of the January 2023 special
And regular meetings of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
Do any members of the board have corrections for the minutes of January 2023? Seeing none, there being no corrections, the minutes are approved as presented.
So noted.
Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the superintendent?
Yes, Mr. President, we do have one communication, and that is the monthly report from the Superintendent of Schools with possible action. This is an informational item, and it has been noticed for possible action, but no action is required.
Would the administration please present the report?
Good evening, President Peterson and members of the board. Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. February reports provide some of the district's highlights for this month. Each February, Black History Month pays special tribute to the many contributions, legacies, and achievement of African Americans in our society. Black History Month is an opportunity to elevate the premises around historical Black figures and their accomplishments. I would like to again recognize all of the students who participated in the Dr. Martin Luther King annual writing, art, and speech contest. As special acknowledgments to the first place winners who were able to join us this evening. Across our Milwaukee Public Schools, our students and staff honored our rich culture through instructional lesson plans and projects, research, field trips, performances, creative arts, and school-wide gallery walks, to name a few. February 6th through the 10th, we recognize Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action through and hosted activities and events at our schools and in the community. We appreciate all of the planning and the partnership that went into these meaningful engagements. Every day, our school counselors impact the lives of our students by helping them find success in school as well as planning for college and career. This month, we celebrate National School Counseling Week with the 2023 theme, Helping Students Dream Big. We thank our school counselors for playing a huge part in educating and supporting our students and families. Tomorrow, February 24th, begins the 3-day We Are the Drama experience with Capitol Production promises performances filled with talented singers, dancers, actors of all ages. Don't miss this high-energy production at our very own Marshall High School this coming weekend. Just a few reminders to our families that the kindergarten enrollment is still underway. We encourage you to make your selections early. Also, to our middle and high school students and families, please meet with your school counselors to learn more about the PEOPLE program, the University of Wisconsin-Madison Pre-College Enrichment Opportunity Program for Learning Excellence. Help prepare students to be better ready for college, apply for admissions, and enroll at UW system institutions with the emphasis on UW-Madison. Do not miss this opportunity to apply by working with your school counselor during the next few days to fill out go through the application period. This concludes my report, and my report is attached. Thank you.
Do any board members wish to make comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the Office of Board Governance?
Yes, Mr. President, we do have one more communication from the Office of Board Governance, and that is the request to retire to closed session for consideration of and possible action on the employment compensation and performance evaluation data relative to the Senior Director of the Office of Accountability and Efficiency.
Okay, the recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes this item. I'd like to have us do it at the end of our meeting, if that's okay. Okay, any objection to that? Okay, very good.
So noted. Next, we have our legislative activities affecting MPS. This is an informational item, although it has been noticed for possible action. No action is required.
Good evening, President Peterson, members of the board, Chris Thiel, Office of Governmental Relations. The update this evening is on the governor putting forward his executive budget proposal, which is included in the item. And anytime a budget proposal comes out, making sure that there's proper context when we introduce that is usually a good idea. And this budget proposal has some very positive things in it. As we discussed in previous meetings, we've been asking to increase the reimbursement rate. That's been a long-standing item on our agenda. And the governor has made a move to actually improve upon the state superintendent's request that she put out to move the reimbursement rate from roughly 30% where it is now up to 60% immediately in the first year of the biennium, and then again in the second year of the biennium. For Milwaukee Public Schools, what has been happening is because the state does not provide that reimbursement rate, the state recommitting to our students with disabilities would mean an additional $59 million roughly annually for this district that we could put back into our classrooms and support all students, including students with disabilities. We're at that point in the process where the governor puts out his budget, it then moves to the Joint Finance Committee. Joint Finance Committee in past years has unfortunately kind of reset, kind of started from base as they term it, and they don't necessarily take the governor's budget, but advocacy efforts are ongoing to impress upon the legislature the need not only for this, but as we discussed previously, the need for a $1,500 per pupil increase over the biennium. The governor puts roughly $1,000 there, and obviously the governor has to fund an entire state budget, so those are the decisions he made. What's also been happening, as we've discussed, is the context of those numbers seem big, but when we look back on our history and where we've been over the last 14, 16 years, we know that we've been below the rate of inflation. We know that per pupil funding has been falling behind year after year after year. And one of the things that I think, it used to be something that everybody knew, but time moves on and fades a little bit, is when we look back at 2011, a lot was going on in the state of Wisconsin. We had Act 10, we had funding cuts, but something else happened in 2011 that maybe doesn't get the same level of headline. The state at that time changed its cut scores for what it means to be proficient in the state of Wisconsin. So overnight, we went from having 78% reading proficiency in the state of Wisconsin to 35%. Proficiency in the state dropped 40 points overnight because the state made a decision to change what it means to be proficient. Now, in our legislative agenda, we highlight the state's fact that it keeps itself accountable to its own constitution. Students in the state of Wisconsin have the opportunity for a sound basic education. They define a sound basic education as the opportunity to be proficient in reading, mathematics, science, history, geography. In the same moment that we dramatically changed and raised the bar for what it means to be proficient in the state, we lowered funding for our kids. We lowered the opportunity to be proficient, and we have not caught up ever since 2011. So we're going to hear a lot about reading as we should, as we always do. There's some interest at the legislative level in moving to new reading programs, and the proficiency rate in our state is quoted. What's not remembered in these conversations recently is that we made that decision as a state. The state made that decision, I should say. That's a state decision. If you're going to increase what it means to be proficient, you need to increase the opportunity to be proficient. Our state went the wrong way in 2011 and hasn't caught up since. So that's important in this context. Governor's budget has some large numbers in it, but in the general context of our recent state history, we know that that's the level of effort, and frankly, perhaps even more effort is needed to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our state constitution. So happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions on the part of the board members? Director O'Halloran.
Do you know when, I think I've asked this, when the Joint Finance Committee hearings will be, or do you know when that decision will be made? I think last year they had 3 of them that were in person, for public hearings, sorry. 1 was virtual. Just wondering how, if any members of the board or the listening audience would like to turn up and say like, hey, this sounds pretty great, you should do this. How can we make our voices heard?
Director Halloran, members of the board. Yes, with every state budget, there are public hearings, as you've mentioned. We have not seen the dates for those public hearings yet. So in the next week or two, I think we'll see announcements. Each agency or department of state government is asked to come testify before the Joint Finance Committee. And then after that, they go around the state, 4 or 5 locations. Hopefully they come to Milwaukee. That's not always the case, but certainly we'll get that information out when we have it.
Okay, could you just mention also, you mentioned the literacy, was there something about mathematics in the state budget that might be of interest to our listening audience?
President Peterson, members of the board, yes. As we have in our legislative agenda, we had a history here of success with something called the Milwaukee Mathematics Partnership. And when we were able to implement that in the 2000s, we had math teacher leaders in our school sites. We had $10 million of annual funding and state support and a strong partnership with the Department of Public Instruction. It's part of a National Science Foundation grant. And when we implemented that and had that funded in partnership with the state, we saw student improvement. We saw our achievement scores go up across all of our schools. That funding was eliminated back in 2011 in the first Walker budget. The governor has reintroduced that funding and was the state superintendent at the time. He knows firsthand how successful that was. So we're hopeful that we can build some support for that program as well.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Director Leonard.
So I'm not sure how much contact you have with the legislators. So I'm sort of curious, what would be your prognosis on some of these things getting through a Republican legislative body?
Director Leonard, members of the board. What I can say is there's been strong direct communication, I think, from a lot of school districts across the state in a way that we haven't seen before. And rural districts in particular, I think, have been very strong in communicating the need for what that 60% reimbursement would mean for their district, or what that per pupil increase means. Again, that per pupil increase we are asking for is simply tied to the rate of inflation. Right. Yeah, we're using the word increase. I should probably back up. It's a per pupil adjustment that keeps pace with inflation. So increase is kind of a misnomer, but it's used there. I'm hopeful we will see something. I don't want to give a false impression. Just past history suggests that maybe we won't hit the levels that we need. But that's why we engage in the process. I think Director O'Halloran's comment about making sure we get out to present our case as parents, as community members, to really help support these needs in a productive way. We've been having productive conversations. So I'm hopeful. There is significant, we've not seen this level of fund balance in the state coffers ever. So the funds are there to do what we need to do. So we'll keep pushing.
Thank you. Can I ask something else?
Go ahead.
So I think you're familiar with, and I think Dr. Mann had sent that out to us, information on the lawsuit in Pennsylvania, the successful lawsuit. Is there anything in that lawsuit that you're aware of that we could bank on, that we could use, especially if we won the state Supreme Court coming up?
Mr. Thiel.
Director Leonard, members of the board. I think, the things that you would go back to, the best reference point continues to probably be the Vincent versus Voigt decision from 2001. And it's in that Vincent versus Voigt decision where this comment about the state, an opportunity for a sound basic education is tied to the opportunity to be proficient in these areas. A couple things have happened since that decision. One, we dramatically changed what it means to be proficient in the state, and funding, unfortunately, has gone backward. And then the other key area that decision focused in on was making sure the term districts are not fungible, meaning districts serve different students who have different needs. And the state has an obligation to, in particular, make sure it's supporting students with disabilities, students challenged by poverty, and English learners in particular. So in those areas, the special education funding continues to kind of be at historic lows for our state and low relative to the country. So I think those would be the areas we focus on here, where if something did go forward, I think that's where the conversation would be.
Thank you.
Any other comments from board members? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, what's the next item of business? Thank you, Mr. Thiel.
Thank you.
The next item
On tonight's agenda is the monthly report with possible action on the activities within the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Mr. Chasen.
Thank you, Chair Peterson, Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. That item is before you. In the interest of brevity, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the part of the board? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, what's the next item of business?
The next item of business is the action on the reports of the independent hearing officers of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors, student expulsions.
The chair will entertain a motion to accept, modify, or reject the reports of the independent hearing officers of the dates and times listed in our agenda. Could I have a motion, please? Director Carr?
I move approval of the
Thank you.
item.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Director Garcia?
I second that.
Thank you. Would you please state the roll, Madam Secretary?
On Director Carr's motion, and that is to accept the reports of the independent hearing officers, seconded by Director Garcia. On the motion as read, Director Carr?
Aye.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Aye.
Chair Peterson?
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, the motion passes.
Okay, we now have the reports of the standing committees. Since public hearing was given at the committee meetings, the board, as is customary, will not be giving a public hearing on these reports this evening. Madam Secretary, what is the first report?
The first report is that of the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. Item 4, action on a request to incorporate a remote work provision in the employee handbook has been set aside as it was forwarded to the board without recommendation.
I'd also like to set aside number 3, the resolution by Director Simpson and me.
So noted.
Any other items which should be, from this committee, wish to be set aside? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, what's next?
The next report is that of the Committee on Parent and Community Engagement. No items of this report have been set aside for separate consideration.
Do any board members wish any items to be set aside? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, what's the next report?
The next report is that of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. Item 1, action on a request to approve the MPS FY23 Head Start Federal Continuation Grant application has been set aside, as it was also forwarded to the board without recommendation.
Okay. And is there any other item on this, from this committee, that a board member wishes to set aside? Seeing none, okay. Let's have a motion and action on the motion for the balance of the reports in the standing committees. Director O'Halloran.
I move that we accept the balance of the standing committees.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Director Simpson. Director-
I second that. So noted.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the balance of the reports of the standing committees outside of those that have been set aside, seconded by Director Simpson. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
President Peterson.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, the motion passes.
What is, Madam Secretary, what's the next item?
Mr. Chair, we are now back to the items that were set aside. The first item set aside is the report on the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. Item number 4, action on a request to incorporate a remote work provision in the employee handbook. The administration recommends that the board approve the attached remote work provision to be included in the employee handbook. Your committee forwarded this item to the board without recommendation. Subsequent to the committee's discussion, the administration provided a revised attachment, which is attached to this item.
Thank you. Does the administration wish to comment at this point?
Chair Peterson, members of the board, Adrian Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. Yes, just wanted to highlight the changes that we made based on our discussion last week at AF&P. We tried to provide some clarity with regards to the eligible employee. I think there was some concern saying centrally assigned. People might not be too familiar what term that means. So we added the phrase non-school based to provide a little bit of clarity there. And also, we removed the specific references to finance, human resources, and technology. We understand that the goal is to incorporate and review other areas and departments. So it's clear in this language for the handbook that it's not limited to the 3 areas, and the administration is prepared to start that work with the different areas to determine what positions in the different offices and departments would be eligible and suitable for remote work. And we also included a review process, so if an employee does feel that their remote work request was denied and they want to have a second set of eyes on it, a review of that denial, they can request that the chief of that office can review their request and then decide if it will be approved or not.
Thank you very much. Board members, any comments or questions? Yes, Director Gokul Gandhi.
So I have to say, after reading the report, it is a little bit unfortunate that this is a one-pager that was provided after 8 months of work. I would have expected to see a more robust sort of analysis of what is happening and what we are going to do moving forward. I realize we can talk about it in this setting, but it's just, I feel a little underwhelmed by what is presented. So I just feel like I had to say that.
Okay. I have a comment that I want to make, and I'll pass the gavel to Ms. Simpson.
So noted.
President Peterson.
I just would like the administration to explain or tell us what an employee who thinks they're eligible for this has to do to, what would be the steps that they would take to alert whomever and get the process going.
Ms. Maddaleni.
Chair Simpson, members of the board, Adrian Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. There is a process where there's a request form that we're going to make public that on our HR website, and employee would use that form to submit to their supervisor. And then at that point, the supervisor would review it, and then it would be provided to Human Resources, whether it be approved or denied, and then we would go from there. So the employee would have the process, have the form which outlines the guidelines, terms and conditions of participation of the program. And then at that point, the supervisor would do an analysis of the request, and then it would be approved from there.
Follow-up?
Thank you for that answer. One other question is, in terms of the number of days that a person per week, the person might be able to work virtually, is there any thought that there might be flexibility on that to say if we found a position that was hard to fill, but that person lived in another state, would there be a process by which exceptions could be made? Do you see what I'm trying to go with, especially if we haven't been able to fill a position that's important to be filled and can be done virtually, of course, that would be an assumption.
Administration.
Chair Stevenson, members of the board, Adrian Madeline, Chief Human Resources Officer. Currently, the policy says it's 3 days per week as a max. Again, this is a starting point for us, and as we move forward, we are in the process. We're going to have surveys, and we're going to communicate with people that are on remote and see what changes we can make to the program if needed to expand. In your particular scenario, we have a provision in our policy that you have to work in the state of Wisconsin. There is some tax issues if there's someone that's working outside the state, and our payroll department is not able at this point to handle that. That's a bigger discussion to see what we'd have to do, because we would have to be obligated to follow the tax rules in whatever state that person is living in or where they're working from. So the out-of-state we have currently is not an option for those reasons. But I think we're open in this process to see if we need to be more flexible. We understand the key word here is flexibility, and we understand the challenges when it comes to hiring. And if there is someone that, is only interested in doing remote, do we have to consider that? Maybe. I think we do value, and I think a lot of employers do, that you have some connection to in person and your colleagues. We value that 1 day a week, 2 days a week, at least you're around, you're working with your colleagues, meeting other members of the team and building that camaraderie. And I think we learn a lot there. So I think our intent is to have that hybrid model, but we're always open to looking if there's exceptions in a very high need situation, and there's obviously work that the district needs to get done.
Thank you very much.
All right, returning the gavel.
So noted.
Is there any other comments on this issue? Yes, Director O'Halloran.
Thank you, and I want to thank you for updating it. I know it was a quick turnaround, and you incorporated my feedback, and I want to thank you for that. I think it was brought to my attention that the city has kind of a rather robust handbook regarding remote work with policies and procedures. One section has specific criteria that supervisors would kind of do as a check down to say this is a position that would be eligible to use that kind of as just a decision tree, really. And I was hoping that I'm fully in favor of voting for this tonight, and I'm hoping that we can have the criteria come back to us for review maybe in the April board cycle. And if no one else is ready to make a motion, I can make a motion for accepting administration's recommendation on this handbook provision, the revised version, and ask that a report comes back with the criteria.
Administration, how do you feel about that request?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
in order for further discussion, you do need a second on the motion.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Carr.
I'd like to add to that, or what's the process for adding to it? Because I want to report out on what has been done within that remote work position. Can we add that too? Or does that not make sense? I feel like there's crickets. So a report out, an update on what is being done in that role, because I am a bit bothered by the lack of what's being produced. And I'd like to have an update on what that individual in that role is doing.
Okay, Madam Secretary, we have a motion
Thank you.
on the floor that has to be seconded. That's from.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Director O'Halloran.
Members of the board, is that a second with, are you providing a second to the motion with additional reporting requirements around? I need a little bit more clarity.
the position was created sometime last year, and we have this remote work policy that is one page. I'm asking what evaluation or what updates can you give us about the position?
Mr. Chair, Director Carr, so the productivity of the office.
Position, yeah.
The productivity of the role.
There we go.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Director Carr, given that this is a request for policy, and I believe the request is being asked more of an evaluatory nature or a productivity report, that would be additional information that could be asked of the administration separate from this item. There are two different categories. This is the work product versus evaluation or productivity.
I agree with that.
So when do I request it? Or I just go straight to them and then we report out on the board? Because that's what I'm asking too.
I think, I think passing this policy position is important, and I think what you're suggesting is also important, but that the start would be to ask the superintendent, and then to, depending on the nature of the situation, bring it back to the board, okay?
I'll make that request in writing. I second her.
Okay, so there's been a motion made and seconded to approve this, asking the administration to come back with any tweaks or more details about the policy or procedures in the April cycle. Okay? Yes. Director Gokagandi?
So I quickly pulled up what the city of Milwaukee, it's a 13-page guideline, and many of the things that are listed here are things we should include. So, for example, what defines remote work? There's many types of models of remote work. There's hybrid, there's 2 days in person. I would like details of what that looks like, a more detailed account of position eligibility. How do you become eligible for that? Like, if I was an employee of the district, I would look at this and I don't know that I would get much information on that. What is the actual employee request process? Where do I go? Who do I ask? Do I fill out a form? Do I ask my manager first? What is the supervisor's responsibility? So, one, I think we need to model it off of a more robust process. Two, I would like an analysis of what other districts are doing and how we compare in the Big Five. So to add to this, we need a way more robust product that comes back to us, because I can't really glean much from what is listed here.
Administration.
Chair Peterson, members of the board, Adrian Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. Let's be clear, this is the remote work program, the provision, this is for a handbook. We don't get that specific on the details in our handbook. You can look, our handbook in total is 30 pages. There is a guidance document that's attached that would go along with the form that will have a lot of the details that you're saying will have more information. So happy to share that, and that can provide some clarity to it. Since this is really a handbook provision, we try not to get too detailed with regards to the process and procedures and things, but to your point, those things should be addressed and will be addressed.
Thank you. Go ahead, Director Gokul Gandhi.
So just a follow-up. So the things I listed right now, are those in the guidance or they're not in the guidance? And I guess maybe if you could just share the guidance with us, that would have been helpful.
Administration.
Chair Peterson, members of the board, Adrian Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. Yes, some of the items are there, and clear we have the definitions here. It identifies that the remote work program is only up to 3 days a week. We have some of those definitions here, and it's in the guidance document. How you go about requesting it is in the guidance document. There's some information on criteria supervisor is supposed to be looking at. What are the expectations of the supervisor? What are the expectations of the employee when they work remotely? They have to have a suitable work environment. They have to maintain a regular schedule, those type of things. A lot of that information is there. It's not everything that's in the city's document. Also would like to add, we did consult with other school districts in the Big Five regarding remote work. They don't have a 14-page document. Some of them it's limited. We have looked, and we're happy to share that information with you when we report back in April on the specifics of what the other districts do.
Thank you. Director Gokul-Gandhi, is fine?
Yeah, I look forward to an update.
Great. Okay. Seeing no other hands up, could we please take the roll?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
members of the board, I want to be sure that I've captured the motion, and that is to move approval of the administration's recommendation relative to the item as outlined in the revised attachment to this item with a report of criteria to be brought back to the board in April.
That is the motion I made. Since I don't know if we need to have a substitute motion made that would incorporate more of the feedback that Director Gokul-Gandhi just requested to come back in April. So if it needs to be spelled out, I would welcome a substitute motion from, no, she's shaking her head. But from the Office of Board Governance or the administration standpoint, if we need to be a bit more explicit with what we're requesting, happy to list that.
I think that between the conversation with Director Gokul-Gandhi and the administration, it's clear that it's not just one item. It's
Okay.
a variety of issues that will be detailed, if it's okay. So.
Mr. Chair, members
Yes.
of the board, hearing Director Carr's request and Director Gokul-Gandhi's additional information request, the motion would need to be amended to read that moving approval of the administration's recommendation as outlined in the revised attachment to this item with a report further detailing the criteria and other items related to the development of the remote work policy.
Sounds good.
And that leaves it open to include all of the comments that were stated tonight and any additional information that the administration would like to provide.
Okay.
Perfect.
Please call the roll.
On the motion as read, Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul-Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
President Peterson.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes. The motion passes.
Secretary, what's the next item?
The next item set aside would be item number 3, which is the report with possible action on Resolution 2223R-9 by Director Simpson and Peterson on the collaborative shared leadership.
Thank you. I'm going to pass the gavel once again to Director Simpson.
So noted.
President Peterson.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring this to people's attention who might not have been participating in the committee where we passed this, and also to once again restate the importance of this to the general public and to our MPS community. I really feel that one of the important things that we can do to improve things in MPS is implement this resolution with fidelity, this shared collaborative leadership resolution, and so that our leaders, both in schools and in departments, continue to develop their skills in these areas. And I know the resolution asks that this be part of the 5-year strategic plan. It's not going to happen after one or two PDs, and there'll be a variety, I think, of ways to encourage leaders to move forward in this area. But I just want to say that I think that it's so important at the school level in particular, but also at the departmental level, that people feel that they're part of a learning community, that they're part of a team, that they belong, and that they feel valued. And that's from the leaders and the leaders themselves. It's those kind of environments at our schools and in our departments is what's going to allow us to move forward in a much more quick way than when there's disagreement and sort of dysfunctionality sometimes. And so this is something that I think is going to be a really positive development within the district, but it's not going to be actually easy. The report from the administration did explain a number of different things that are going to happen with new recruits to leadership positions and so on and so forth. And the only other thing I would say is that we need ultimately to find a way to sort of evaluate the success of this effort of building this kind of leadership, whether it's through surveys or whatever, because that will be important to move us forward. So I just thank you for listening to me at this time. I feel really pleased that this is moving forward and that the administration is supportive.
Thank you, President Peterson. And I would just like to echo, agree with everything he said, but just like to echo the importance I feel at building in some type of an evaluation tool so that we can see, I think, we've talked about on the board floor, we make resolutions, how do we know they're working, or what's the evidence that they're effective? So I think building in that piece will be really critical moving forward. So thank you for addressing that. And with that, I will return the gavel.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, can we take a vote on that?
Item,
Yes. Next item.
the report? Yes. The next item that is set aside is from the report on the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. That is item number 1. Action on a request to approve the MPS FY23 Head Start Federal Continuation Grant application. The administration recommends that the board approve the submission of the application, and your committee has forwarded this item to the board without recommendation.
Thank you. Does the administration have any new information to present?
President Peterson and members of the board, the administration have had an opportunity to have some further conversations with one-on-ones with board members, and we stand ready to answer any questions that anyone may have at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody on the board want to ask a question or make a comment? Director Gokul-Gandhi. Director Simpson.
Thank you. So just, a couple of questions. So with the creation of the 7 positions that would be added through this grant, will there be, I'm assuming we're going to have to create a job description for those positions, going through an application process. I'm just wondering a little bit about how that whole piece of it will be handled with these 7 positions.
Administration.
Director Simpson, President Peterson, and members of the board. Regarding the, the 7 positions, the positions were very similar to the school support teacher position. However, yes, there will be a review of the job description to ensure that there will be some, specific early childhood Head Start tasks that would be added. For example, they may provide input pertaining to family engagement, which is something that the Family Partnership Associates provide support in. But knowing that individuals have come from classrooms and just may have had experience working with families or working on transition, that we would most definitely ask for, I guess, their expertise in regards to things that were specific to the program.
Dr. Simpson, follow-up?
Sorry, yes, I have another question. So in a school, if we're closing a K-4 Head Start classroom, we currently, families are currently enrolling, they will be shifted or offered a position into our board-funded K-4 classrooms, so, which are also, being enrolled in at the same time. So how will we handle that, the increased enrollment that could happen in the board-funded K-4 classroom? Because I know sometimes those classrooms can, suddenly become very full, especially after Third Friday. Our younger students tend to enroll kind of throughout the whole school year. Those numbers tend to increase. So thinking ahead, if this were to pass, what would that look like in a K-4 classroom where those numbers start to elevate, say, beyond 20, 25 students? Are we, prepared to offer full-time para support? What would that look like?
Administration.
Director Simpson, President Peterson, and members of the board, yes, there will be monitoring of the enrollment in the schools that were, I guess, suggested to not have the Head Start 4-year-old option. With keeping that in mind, then we will also, work to ensure that proper support is provided within those classrooms.
Dr. Simpson, follow-up?
I'll
question?
let some other board members ask questions. Thank you.
Any other questions by other board members? Director Leonard?
So I'm going to actually add on to that, what Director Simpson just asked. All right. I got to give a numerical example. So in a building, you have one K-4 classroom, and you're shutting down the Head Start program. If you go from 30 K-4 students and you pick up 10 more, are we going to be separating those classrooms so that we don't overload that classroom and or are we just putting more support into the actual classroom? I'm just concerned about the literal numbers inside those K-4 classrooms.
Administration.
Dr. Peterson, Director Leonard, and members of the board, in regards to enrollment, once again, we will review numbers. I can say from an early childhood perspective, that is not the, I guess, expectation to have 40 students within one classroom. We would ensure to, once again, just keep note of that. However, I would also like to add about about the sites that we had reviewed, and just looking at the current enrollment, the enrollments were 26, 23, and as 12. So once again, I just would like to say that, we keep a close eye on the enrollments, and we'll do our best to ensure that there are not 40 students within a classroom, and that if there is a need to make a suggestion to hire an additional teacher, then that would be the recommendation.
President Peterson, members of the board, by no means will we overcrowd a classroom. The classes and the sites that have been located, that have been identified, are sites that are under-enrolled. We do not have those students. If we had those numbers of students, we would keep the program there. And the reason why we are moving those programs and adjusting is because the lack of students in those classes.
Any other comments by board members? Director Gokul Gandhi.
Is it possible to ask for an extension on this application?
President Peterson, Director Gokungani, and members of the board. The application is due March 1st, and there is not an option to ask for an extension.
Okay, and if we pass this tonight, can revisions be made even though this is a 5-year plan? Or do we have to stick to what was submitted?
Administration?
President Peterson, Director Gokungani, and members of the board, in order for any revisions to be made, the application would need to be approved by the Policy Council, as well as be signed off by the Policy Council Chair, and also be approved again by the board. And with the time that we are at this moment, we would not be able to submit the application by March 1st.
Director Gokul-Gandhi.
I meant post-submission. Does the same process apply for any revisions?
Post-submission, not to my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Members
Yes.
of the board, I just want to be clear. Any changes after approval of the 5-year grant application, would that need to be sent to the Policy Council and the board after submission of the grant application for continuation? So now there's a 5-year process. Any changes to that, just say next year, would those changes be required to come to the board after coming to the Policy Council?
Administration?
There is an annual, report pertaining to the application and that being approved. However, from my understanding, there has not been, to the extent of major, changes that have been approved. What happens is that the Office of Head Start approves the application as is, and then evaluates on the goals and the strategies that have been listed in the initial application.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Director Leonard.
Just how often do we get a report on our enrollment numbers for Head Start, out of curiosity? Is it just that third Friday, or is it on a more regular basis that we could get that?
Administration?
President Peterson, Director Leonard, and members of the board, every month enrollment numbers are reported to the Office of Head Start. So if you are requesting for monthly enrollments, those can be made available to you.
Thank you.
Director Simpson?
So I just have a question regarding when we were told to, your enrollment for Head Start is going down, you have to modify your programming, because I just feel like it's since COVID, and I'm just curious, because I know before being on the Head Start Policy Council, we were often told there were waiting lists for Head Start, our Head Start programming. So I'm just wondering when we were told that we had to modify our programming because of numbers.
Administration?
President Peterson, Director Simpson, and members of the board, I can provide historical information pertaining to enrollments. Pre-pandemic, it was 83% of the 1506 federal enrollment number. The prior 2 years before the pandemic, we were not able to even meet the enrollment, and that has always been the expectation of the program. It went down to 36% in COVID. It went up to approximately about 85%, and about 80%. No, I think that's wrong. That's lower than that, because now we're at 69%. So it was fairly between about 69 and 70% last year, and this year was 69%. We're presently at 87% of the 1506 enrollment at 1322. We continue to enroll families even after Third Friday. And so with the monthly meetings with the Office of Head Start, we were advised to create a plan to ensure full enrollment, due to the fact that that would be a proactive action, and it would ensure that we would be able to maintain the funding, grant funding for the program. And if this action was not taken based upon the 5 years where the program had not met its expected enrollment, the funding could be reduced during this next grant period.
President Peterson and members of the board, there was a question around, did it take a dip? Yes, we know that it took a dip. However, we have not been able to meet the number. And I will be the first to say it took a greater dip during the pandemic, a downward spiral, especially when we did not open back up. So there, that went down, and now we are on an increase of getting more students in and doing those kinds of things. And one of our goals is to try to relocate programs to areas where there is a waiting list of students so that we can fill those numbers and so that we don't lose any funding.
Any other comments from my board members? Director Simpson?
Could you just walk us through the process of the schools were now there and they're having to access a staff member? Just kind of walk us through what happens to that Head Start teacher whose classroom is now not going to be there next year. What kind of, what's the process for them? And then also, what are we doing for the families who have already enrolled in those K4 Head Start classrooms?
Administration.
President Peterson, Director Simpson, and members of the board. First, there has not been any enrollment in those sites for K4. That has not occurred. We did not, we put a pause on them until we had gotten a final decision made pertaining to the plan. So there has not been any enrollment made in those classrooms. In regards to the teachers, the process would be that they could be eligible for any vacancy within their school. They could take advantage of any vacancy that's available to them in the district. I believe the level A interview cycle is to begin, I think, next week. Or they could also express interest in the position in providing additional support within the Head Start program with one of those pool of teacher positions that will be made available.
President Peterson and members of the board, the excess process will be followed that we have through Human Resources for any time that we access a position on the process. And she talked about this whole thing around seniority. Their seniority rules are in place. All of those things will be adhered to.
Dr. Simpson, any? Okay. Dr. Gokul Gandhi.
Can I request that we bring this back to committee a year from now to see how we're doing in the 5-year grant cycle, just to go over enrollment numbers, go over the plan, understand where we are. I'm sure that if we, I'm sure we don't need to stick to a 5-year plan if it's not working, and we can go to the council and say, I think we need to move things around. So I would like to request that we bring this back to SASE a year from now.
Administration, how often have you brought information back to us in the meantime? Go ahead.
President Peterson, Director Gokul Gandhi, and members of the board, annually a Head Start update is provided. So that is part of the process, is to provide an update to the board pertaining to progress made on goals within the application. So it is a standard part of the process.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Director Gokul Gandhi.
Yeah, just to follow up, I wanted to make sure that we were referencing this $11 million grant. So I understand that we have a, annual Head Start report, but I also would like to add sort of a second layer to that report, that we come back to this grant application and we just understand any unintended consequences or implications that of the plan that we have that might have been made in the plan.
Administration.
President Peterson and members of the board, we would be more than happy to bring that back. I guess the question that I would ask, because what got us here is enrollment. But is there any other nuances of the plan that you have concerns about that we want to make sure that we address as well. But the enrollment piece is kind of what has put us to where we are tonight.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
I think just particularly looking at the sites that we identified in this plan and seeing if enrollment there has increased or decreased, just geographically to understand any trends. And if we got the trends correct, then great. If not, then I think revising the plan would be important for us to do.
Administration.
President Peterson and members of the board, the administration will be happy to bring this plan back in a year to take a look at the nuances that we just addressed.
Thank you very much. Dr. Simpson.
So as teachers are, like, they currently are, realizing that they may not, that their classroom might not be there next year, they're thinking, what am I going to do? When would these job descriptions be ready for these 7 positions, so that if it's an option they're considering, they can see what they'll, what exactly they would be doing? When would those be ready?
Administration.
President Peterson and members of the board, this is a fairly smooth turnaround. I can ask Adrian Maddalini to come out to give us an exact timetable of what that will be like, but it's just the idea. This is as she said, we're going to use the SST's description and then add a few descriptions onto that. So that is very easy to turn around and to get out there. And then also we have to do an advertisement piece of getting it out. So Adria, if you can address how many days it will take you to turn that around after approval.
Chair Peterson, members of the board, Adria Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer. As mentioned earlier, the job description is going to be based off of the SST job description. There might be some minor tweaks, so could work with the Head Start team and have them done by the end of next week. We know that Cycle A is starting, so then we can have those updated job descriptions provided to the staff so that, that the affected staff, so they have an idea when they're looking at Cycle A and potentially looking at other open positions, they can make a determination of, they want to move forward or if they want to look at other options.
Any follow-up, Dr. Simpson?
Last one. Just if when those job descriptions are ready, if you could send a copy, that would be great. Thank you.
Administration.
Chair Peterson, members of the board, Adria Maddaleni, Chief Human Resources Officer, absolutely will be happy to provide that.
Thank you very much. Director Gokul Gandhi.
Can I make a motion?
Do we need a motion? Yes, okay. Dr. Gokul Gandhi.
I move that we approve the Head Start grant application.
Do we have a second? Director Garcia?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
The administration's recommendation relative to submission of the continuation grant for Head Start for the FY23 school year. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Simpson.
Aye.
President Peterson.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, what's the next item on the agenda?
The next item on tonight's agenda are the regular items of business. We are now at item number 1, which is the report of the board's delegates. The first report is that of the board's delegates to WASB, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards.
Okay.
And that is Director Taylor, who is not with us tonight.
Awesome.
The report will be
Okay.
forthcoming to the board.
Okay. Next.
The next report is that of the board's delegate to the Head Start Policy Council.
Dr. Simpson?
I was just checking to make sure it was actually there this month. That report is before you. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Madam Secretary, what's the next report?
The next report is that of the board's delegate to the District Advisory Council.
Director?
I did not
Leonard?
see that report. It is. Okay, thank you. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any of those questions. Thank you.
And the next report?
Mr. President, we are now to the regular items of business, the monthly report of the President of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
That report is before you, and if you have any questions, please contact me. And that's report for both last month and this month. Madam Secretary, next item.
The next item would be unfinished business. However, we do not have any unfinished business.
Madam Secretary, are there any items of new business?
We have no items of new business for referral.
Are there any communications for referral to committee?
We have no communications for referral. However, we do have 3 resolutions this month.
Right, there would be resolutions referral to the committee?
Yes.
Okay. We have,
The first resolution is Resolution 2223R-14 by Directors Peterson and Leonard on a Success Center for Early Years.
that will refer that committee to the Committee of Student Achievement and School Improvement. What's the next resolution?
The next resolution is Resolution 2223R-15 by Director Garcia on 3-tier busing.
Very good. We'll refer that committee to the AFMP committee.
The next resolution is Resolution 2223R-16 by Director Carr on a feasibility study for innovative schools.
And we'll refer that to the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item brings us back to the item from the Office of Board Governance, and that is to retire to closed session regarding the performance evaluation data and the employment and compensation relative to the Senior Director of the Office of Accountability and Efficiency.
I will now entertain a motion to retire to closed session to consider the 2 items as announced by the Secretary pursuant to the Wisconsin Statutes 1985.95(1)C, which allows a government body to retire to executive session for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or expresses responsibility. Is there any discussion on this motion? Should somebody make it first? Director Carr.
I move that we
Go to
executive
close.
session.
Yeah. Do we have a second? Director Leonard.
Yes, I second.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Carr's motion, seconded by Director Leonard, to retire to closed session for consideration of and possible action on the employment, compensation, and performance evaluation data relative to the Senior Director of Accountability and Efficiency. On the motion as read into the record, Director Carr?
Aye.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Aye.
President Peterson?
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, the motion passes.
At this time, the board will retire to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19.851(c). The board will reconvene in open session to take action on this item or to continue with the remainder of our agenda. Will the Secretary please note?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Or the board may retire from executive
Yes,
session
of
if there are no other items.
of course. So the board may retire from executive session if there's no other items. Will the Secretary please note the time?
So noted.